see from that warm reception you have kindly given to him how well respected he is amongst your community. I was just saying, Raj, that there are perhaps few people in history who become known as much by their initials as by their full name. Some famous, some infamous. John Francis Kennedy, JFK. O.J. Simpson became known as just O.J. So you might not want to be in his company. As you all know, Raja has faced prosecutions that have failed in Malaysia, and he's in London securing some respite from these processes. And we're going to set the scene by showing a brief extract from a documentary produced by Australian ABC television. Thank you. Well, Raja will address everyone and then take questions. So if you could hold fire on your questions until he's finished his initial address, and then we'll conduct the question and answer session as the second part. So without further ado, over to RPK.
Thank you, Susan. A good afternoon to everybody, and I would like to thank you all for coming here today. I was told this hall does not normally see a full hall or a packed hall, and I see we even managed to fill up the back seats there. Probably most people want to hear my normal very controversial comments I make about the government and stuff like that. But I'm sorry to disappoint you. Today I'm not going to be controversial at all. I'm going to be my most well-behaved and my most docile. Now, we are here to speak about the Internal Security Act, the ISA. I can speak about a lot of things, and I can go on for 2-3 hours, like during the election rallies, where finally they had to switch off the microphone to get me to stop talking. But I was told today I've got maybe 30 to 40 minutes only, and then you can ask all your controversial questions. I was told there's going to be probably hundreds of questions you're going to ask me. I'll try to reply to 1 or 2. And if you ask me nice enough, maybe another 1 or 2 thrown in. The ABC documentary, Australian Broadcasting Corporation documentary, which you just saw a short snippet of just now, you did not see the beginning, but it started off by saying the Internal Security Act, which is a relic of the old British government, or the British colonial government of Malaya. I've met people, journalists as well as politicians here in the UK, and they too have said the Internal Security Act is an old British law that was left when the British left Malaya and gave Malaya independence in 1957. Now, the ISA is the Internal Security Act 1960. Malaya got independence in 1957. How can the ISA be a British law when the law was introduced 3 years after independence, after the British had left the country? Thank you. I needed that. The ruling party, or the government, always argues that why are we Malaysians complaining against the ISA? After all, it is the British who introduced that law. Lawyers, practicing lawyers in Malaysia, also do not seem to know the history of the ISA. There are some lawyers, constitutional lawyers, Raja Aziz Adrus, Malik Imtiaz, Haris Ibrahim as an example. These are human rights lawyers. They understand the history of the ISA and what the ISA is all about. But if you speak to the other lawyers, they seem a bit blur about the history, the motive, the objective of the ISA. In 1960, Tun Abdul Razak, the Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister, and father to today's Prime Minister Najib, he introduced the bill in Parliament, the Internal Security Act 1960 bill. D.R. Srinivasagam, the PPP, People's Progressive Party President, who was then the opposition leader in Parliament, he stood up and he opposed the ISA. And he said, why do we need such a draconian and a very wide law that allows for detention without trial? The Constitution, the Federal Constitution of Malaya, guarantees every citizen the right to a fair trial. You cannot detain anyone more than 24 hours without producing that person in front of a magistrate, either to be charged or for a remand application to be approved by the magistrate. And at most, you can detain that person is for 14 days. After that, either he's released or he's charged. But even then, no magistrate will allow a full 14 days. Maybe they'll give you 3 days, come back for another 3 days. And if the magistrate feels that you've detained him long enough, and there should be no longer any further detention, the magistrate can reject your application for remand and say charge him or release him.